Welcome to part 2. I don't have anything else to say, so let's just finish this list. Yes, I know the name sounds dumb, but Rock Paper Scissors is one of the funniest cartoons I've seen in a while. The premise is pretty simple, but it's enough to give you almost endless story ideas. Thanks to the great cast of characters, the titular trio are incredibly entertaining, with personalities that have lots of contrast and depth beyond the surface, particularly with Paper and Scissors, who have surprisingly interesting parallels, like how often they pretend to be something they aren't, which contrasts with how Rock is perfectly okay with who he is. This dynamic is also backed by a voice cast that really brings their A game. As for the side characters, they're a little more inconsistent. Lou is really funny, but Pencil goes from surprisingly entertaining to just being there, and the show can be a little inconsistent with who they consider to be side characters. The Rat Brothers are in the intro, but are only really important in 2 episodes, and the convenient news reporter is also in the intro, but he's just there to give exposition. Moving on to the visuals, I like the designs for the main trio. They remind me of a mix between Fish Hooks and regular show, and they stand out compared to the somewhat bland-looking humans, and I also think the mixed media aesthetic they go for is pulled off decently, especially in some of the backgrounds. However, the show's rigged animation is very hit or miss. Some shots look alright, but there's others that just look incredibly choppy. The show has a really good combination of sitcom plots and off-the-wall concepts, and I like how it gets willing to experiment later on, like the episode that takes place almost entirely in Scissors' mind. I also enjoyed a lot of the humor in this show, which impressed me because most of it is dialogue-based, but it's really good dialogue-based humor, and it's great at catching you off guard. That's pretty much all I can say regarding this show. It's really good, really funny, and I think you. Common side effects: out of all the shows on this list, definitely feels like the most ambitious one. It's an adult cartoon that mixes humor, genuine psychological drama, and a serialized plotline that progresses from episode to episode, and it's able to balance those things almost flawlessly. The concept draws you in immediately, generating intrigue regarding this mysterious mushroom that can seemingly cure every illness, and as we meet more allies and more forces after the mushroom, you want to know more, especially as the risks of taking the mushroom are shown. The show is great at keeping you wanting for more with each episode, and the story takes some very bold turns. However, what really elevates this show is the characters. Marshall and Francis are a very interesting duo, who seemingly know each other incredibly well, but as the tension rises, we see how their friendship gets challenged. The contrast between them is fascinating, and it makes their interactions even more memorable, and it makes some future developments incredibly impactful and jaw-dropping. As for the other characters, they all get at least one moment to shine, which makes you care about them a little more. But of course, the best side characters are Cupano and Harrington. Their interactions feel especially natural, and I like how the show sort of baits you in episode 1, making you think they're just dumb, but nope, they're actually competent but very chill and somewhat silly. A close runner-up would be Rick, mostly because he's voiced by Hank Hill. Speaking of voices, this show has an incredible voice cast that makes the interactions feel natural. As for the visuals, there's definitely a lot of effort to make it look and feel cinematic, with great staging and realistic acting, but the character designs occasionally feel too uncanny. Once again, I don't have a lot to say, but this time it's because I want this to be spoiler-free, because this show is absolutely worth watching. If you want more ambitious adult animation, you have to check this out. The storytelling, dialogue, humor, visual direction, character writing, plot progression, pretty much everything in this show makes it so unique from what your average adult cartoon has to offer. But beyond being unique, it truly is a brilliant show, and I can't wait for season 2. I don't think anyone was expecting this of all shows to be at the top of the list, but it's definitely the most entertaining cartoon currently on air. I wouldn't call it the most ambitious, but the Patrick Star Show is just so fun and experimental. To get it out of the way, the first half of season 1 isn't that great. Most of it is just SpongeBob SquarePants but with random segments cutting into episodes, although there's a few visually ambitious episodes, but starting with the butterfly effect, the show becomes great. It was the first episode to be board-driven, just like SpongeBob up until season 9B, and the new crew members were able to make the show spectacular. If we want to get more technical, the show has a lot of expressive animation and acting, the backgrounds are great, there's some ambitious mixed media, and the voice cast is filled with standout performers. But to me, what makes this show the best modern cartoon is how loose and fun it is. Every episode now feels like a unique adventure, with mostly the same cast of characters, that being the Star family, who are a really charming and funny ensemble, especially Grand Pat, but the show is also willing to put the spotlight on random side characters, which keeps things fresh. Not every episode is great, and I still don't really like the Captain Quasar or Pat the Hapless episodes, but the show has so much charm that I can overlook that. You're always gonna get some kind of surprise, whether it's an award show episode, or an episode where Patrick becomes Guy Fieri. To be more detailed, the Star family has a unique dynamic that sets them apart from your average animated family, with everyone being silly in one way or another, but rarely to the point of making them annoying. Patrick in particular feels a lot less obnoxious here compared to how he's written in the main show right now, and he's able to carry the segments that just focus on the titular show he hosts. The rest of his family is also really charming, and as I said, Grand Pat is the best one, and the show has built a wide array of side characters, including the characters from the Quasar and Hapless episodes, the Dartfish family and Granny Tentacles. The show has a unique way of bringing characters from the main show into episodes. Since it takes place before the events of SpongeBob, characters feel a little different, and the show definitely has fun changing them up. However, I feel like the show stands out the most when it completely goes its own way and does its own silly stuff, since it operates on a similar wavelength to Uncle Grandpa, and not the restrained silliness of the main show. Out of every show on this list, this one has the most variety and fun with its humor. It has pretty much everything: slapstick, dialogue, surrealism, absurdism, fourth wall breaks, and some surprisingly old-fashioned pop culture references, and most importantly, you can really tell the crew has fun with each episode, right from the beginning. This show impressed me. It started rough, but unlike Comp Coral, it was able to carve out its own identity, and has only gotten better as it's gone on. And that's the end of this two-part video. Thank you all for watching. Remember to do all the YouTuber stuff, and I'll see you all in the next millennium.